Hey everybody, Mark May here. Today I'm going to be talking about one very important, very simple, easy way to communicate emotion through using split toning in Lightroom or some other editor you have. Okay, I work with a lot of teenagers. I've been working with teenagers for about 10 years now and teaching them digital art, photography, video, and how to manipulate images to communicate certain emotions and concepts and ideas. One of those ways to do that is to include subtle colors in your images. Now, I'm a wedding photographer, so the emotions that I want to communicate in my images, I want people to feel love, I want people to feel joy, optimism, I want people to feel energy, I want people to feel happy. Okay, so you can already notice that my images are probably going to have more yellows and reds and oranges and sometimes purples in them rather than the greens and blues that you find in more fine art conceptual work. And that's fine too, but for my business, I'm focusing on joy, happiness, positivity, optimism. Why? Because that's what I want my clients to feel when they see my photos. So that can increase the chances of them booking you or at least reaching out to you. Okay? So again, this was created by a 15-year-old, so it's a fairly easy concept. If you're interested in more conceptual stuff, you can also include the more negative emotion side over here that my student included too. But today I'm going to focus on how to communicate creativity, happiness, wisdom, joy, power, passion, energy through using red, yellows, and oranges, and specifically using this split toning panel over here. Okay, so I'm going to go back over to my image that we're going to use today. I've already applied one of my presets to it. If you have my presets, then you can actually just sift through and look at them, but I'm just going to leave my current edit on and show you how to use split toning here to communicate that happy, joy, optimism, emotion. All right, and I'm also going to show you how to create presets where you don't have to do this every time. So I've already got one of my split toning decisions or presets applied to this image here, and you can actually see there's before my split tone and there's after. You can easily and quickly see the effect of that split toning from before and after, and how much more subtle, positive, happy joy is exuded just by adding my split toning decisions here. Now, what is split toning first? Split toning is essentially what colors are going to be in the highlights of your image. So the more bright parts of the image, more exposed parts of the image. And then down here you got the colors that are going to be in the shadows. So in this image, the shadows are actually my subjects here. You can actually see their faces, and the part that's focused is actually a shadow. And everything else is highlights generally. Okay, so that does change the decision that I make in the end, but the concept is the same as far as creating presets for it. All right, so for this first decision or preset that I'm going to create, what I did is I moved the hue bar over to the color that I wanted to choose to communicate my emotion. Again, that was a decision I made on the infographic that we looked at a minute ago, right? Now I could crank that hue bar all the way down here, and you can actually see it change, and you can see the feel change. You can feel the emotion change as I do this, especially right here in this area and in this area. And also, can you imagine if this image was not a couple and maybe it was just a model who was had a costume on? Very different feel that you can communicate there. Also, the saturation, so how much of that color is going to be in the highlights. If I crank up my saturation here, you can actually overwhelm your highlights with a color. I really try to stay below 10 usually with my saturation and split toning, just to keep it real subtle. And this one I got 9. My balance is usually going to stay in the middle, but just for the sake of learning, I'm going to show you in a minute how to create a preset on moving the balance as well. So down to shadows. So shadows right now are more on the red and purple side, but you can see as I move the slider how specifically the couple, because they're in the shadows, change color. Very important to understand. And I have a very, very subtle saturation of 2 there. Now here's a cool thing about about split toning for y'all that are a little bit more visual editors. So if you click this box here, you can actually go through, and depending on where you click in this box, Lightroom will actually apply a certain amount of saturation, depending on where you click up or down, of that color that you're clicking on. You can see it change live. I sometimes like to do this a little better. It's a little more interactive. Sometimes sliders aren't much fun, you know. So if that's you, you can just use this little eyedropper guy and click through and visually watch your highlight change. Okay. I'm just going to go back to where I'll just press Command Z and to get back to where I was. So I was down to saturation 9, and my hue was somewhere over in this area. So I'm just pressing Command Z to get back there. And you can see how very different my image changes through all that. All right, so very, very important. Very important split toning, okay? So I think I'm almost back to where I was originally. Yep, there it is. So I'm gonna do the same thing with shadows. I can click this box and just click through, and you can see these shadows change, as well as where on the box, if I click up higher, there's more saturation. If I click lower, there's less saturation. Okay, so this is where I originally was. I'll click back there. All right. So how do I make a preset from this so I don't have to make those decisions again, so I can create continuity in my brand and my business, and maybe just between photos in the same shoot? So if I go up to the top and press develop, I can click new preset. The shortcut is Shift Command N. I like shortcuts, so I'm going to do Shift Command N. So I'm going to call this preset, this pre-made decision, warm split tones 1. So I'm going to create 3 of these, so I can create some variety and diversity in my split toning. Okay. Now you're probably going to want to click check none, and then just go right under color where it says split toning and check that. And so what that's going to do is that's only going to create a preset from those split toning decisions. And press create. Before you do that, actually, click on group and new group, and go ahead and create a specific group called split tones. When I do that, it's actually going to create a whole nother folder in my preset area with just these split tones in it. Press create. Let's go down and find that. And there it is. Split tones, warm split tones 1. Let's make another one. All right, so maybe this time I want my highlights to be a little more purple, a little more red. I'm definitely going to bring down the saturation on this one, I think. Maybe down to 5. And I'm just going to slightly move my shadows over to a little more yellow this time, to take away some of that red from my subjects. Because you can see the back of his neck was getting a little red there. And I might want to bring down my saturation just a smidge to 5. And then I'm just going to move my balance just to see what happens. I think, you know, what's important in Lightroom isn't perfection, it's experimentation. It's figuring out what works for you. So the balance of 0 was fine for me. I'm just going to stay there. All right. And what I'm going to do is hover my warm split tones 1 just to compare it. Now, there's this warm split tone preset, and there was the one I just created. Very different. Okay, this one's a little more subtle and more natural, and I like it. So I'm going to do Shift Command N for a new preset. I'm going to call this warm split tones 2. Make sure split tone is the only one checked. Press create, and there it is. So I have 2 split tones. I'm going to make 1 more. This time I am going to move the balance. Maybe I'm just going to move it to the right like 50, okay? Just for the sake of learning. And shadows, so again, shadows are right here. Many times my shadows are in the background, and that's okay. So I am trying to make a diverse set of 3 different warm, happy, joyful split toning presets that I can apply to any of my photographs at any time. This time I think I might move my highlights to a little more orange and bring down my saturation to like 2. And I'm just going to move my shadow slider again, just back and forth to see if there's a better decision somewhere. That's very interesting. I think I'm going to leave that at 10. Really like that. So I'm going to compare it to my other two just to make sure they're different. So there's that guy, there's that one. There. And you can see the big difference here is the shadows. It seems like this preset makes this couple stand out a little bit more. It adds actually a little bit of contrast to them. So there's split tone 1, split tone 2, and here's my split tone 3. Okay, and I'm actually feeling like the balance might need to go to the other side, so I'm just going to test it out. There's no harm in testing it out. Yeah, I'm going to move it to 50 there. This is a lot more magenta image now, so, and I'll press Command Z just to compare it. Yeah, I like this. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back up and create one more preset, and then I have 3 different split tone presets that'll communicate my emotion. So Shift Command N. Excuse me. So I'm going to call it warm. Warm split tones 3. Make sure split tone is the only one checked. Press Create. Now I have 3 different split tones that communicate my emotion that I want to communicate to my clients. And I can apply these to any photograph, any preset at any time. All right. So that is how you communicate these emotions, these ideas, these concepts that my student communicated here in this infographic. So what I challenge you to do, go ahead and go into your editor, go into Lightroom, whatever you're using, and just create presets for your split toning. That way you can start to focus on setting yourself up to communicate a very specific emotion, a specific idea. That way you can get in that mindset. That way you can stop going back and forth between colors and concepts that you don't really want to communicate. Okay, I hope this video was helpful, and I'll see you on the next one.